The third triangle is called a set, and it is the highest of significance because of the back of the wrist. And we'll explain that a little bit more. The significance of the set shoulder, elbow, thumb hand is that we want this joint to be as reliable as the other two explained, and with the lower body leading up to the shoulder. So to do that, there's planes of projectile, and these planes is what forms a GPS in our car. This is a human propelled GPS. So to keep us on track, to keep us on the right road so that we don't hear rerouting, that type of thing, we want to make sure of these determinants. Shoulder, elbow, thumb hand is inside the basket with the other two triangles. And what does that is the two fingers, index and middle, go behind the forearm relative to the basket. So on the way up here, two fingers. Right here we are. Two fingers go behind the forearm, which causes the third triangle, set. Shoulder, elbow, thumb hand. So we want to now form like the belts on our car for a radiator or any type of dynamics in a machine that determines and defines what is start point and end point. And that belt is two fingers behind the wrist, which is the direction, pathway for the ball. So here we go. That's the first. Now we're going to do the second. And the second is going to be the up. So we got the two fingers behind the wrist inside the basket. We made sure of that. And that was number one. Number two now is to get the ball above the rim in the shooter's view with a two-finger ceiling scrape. And we want the basketball to be released before the two fingers scrape the ceiling. And that's going to come up in a moment here. So we want that up, two fingers behind the ball. Now what that does is it keeps everything, all the bones in the wrist intact. There are 8 bones in the wrist, and there's only one that attaches, and that's the one that's closest to the thumb. It's called the scaphoid bone. And the other 7 are off. So the back of the wrist is vital to have a determinant that if the two fingers stay behind the wrist, then the other 7 bones will not go in front of the thumb and pinky, which would cause the ball to fall inside of his body. So that's called a predetermined postural fix. And it's only one. 2 fingers behind the wrist. 2 fingers behind the wrist at our set. So right from the beginning, 2 fingers behind our wrist at the set. Now 2 fingers are going to scrape the ceiling to keep the dynamics of the shot from swaying. That way it becomes automatic. Jerry West became automatic because he worked his butt off. The predetermination of what he did posturally, knowing that there's something every time he makes it that he does. And that when someone misses, these areas can break down. And that's what we did with Jerry West's shot. So we're going to the second phase here is the 2 fingers scrape the ceiling. That's number 2. And that would be called the vertical phase. So we had the on-line, in-line phase. Now we've got the up and above the rim in the shooter's view with the ball phase. And now the third one we're going to do is going to be the horizontal phase, so the ball doesn't steer one way or the other. This is the release, where everything comes into play. We get a 5-finger balance to a 2-finger to index finger release. So here we go with the last plane. So this is the final plane right there. So we still have our 2 fingers behind the wrist that keeps the triangles. So you can see there's 3 triangles in Jerry West's shot from the beginning to the end. 3 triangles. So when he releases the ball now in this 3rd triangle, it's gone. Now the determinant here is, as opposed to before, 2 fingers behind the wrist. 2 fingers release the basketball just before the 2 fingers scrape the ceiling. 2 fingers above and inside the rim, with the eyes joining above and inside the rim, with the forehead and chin the same height. The forehead and chin the same height. So the ball's gone. Now notice his 2 fingers do not steer side to side. They just, once the ball's completely gone, they come back a little bit. But you notice how the 2 fingers are still facing the rim? That's the predetermined motion. So we're going to go back all the way. So we're in our 3rd triangle set. The reason for this all being explained is for one cue, just one. 2 fingers behind the wrist. And if they stay behind the wrist in the shot fruition, in the shot belt, then he'll be a repeatable machine. You'll be a repeatable machine. So here he goes. The first plane is 5 fingers, get the ball, thumb and pinky same height, 2 fingers behind the wrist. Now he's gotten the ball up in the air, he's secured, 2 fingers facing the basket. Now he wants to get a 2-finger release before his 2 fingers go in front of his wrist. That way he's using the up and out. He's shooting it up and out. If his 2 fingers release the ball after his fingers break the barrier of his wrist, then he's going to get that dead ball. So this is going to take away from the dead release ball, like not having an arc. This is the disseminating cue. It is vital, huge cue that he gets the 2 fingers to release the ball before the 2 fingers break the wrist. So at that point, he's ready to go with that point, and now he's going to be ready for the 3rd plane, which is the deviation plane, which is the 2 fingers. The wrist is, again, a very unstable joint. So it can fly all the way inside and all the way outside, way off the target. It's not this nice, beautiful front, back, releasing joint. When you see someone shoot like this, they've had to work very, very hard at it. The predetermination allows a coach to say, hey, this is what we're going to do, and help the kids to stay on task, never alleviating practice. So finally, the 3rd angle, the 3rd plane, is going to be to keep the 2 fingers under the forearm matched. So the 2 fingers and under the forearm to the 2 fingers, they're matched. So he's got a little, and then he just keeps the 2 fingers still in the basket. 5 fingers, a 2-finger release. What does this do? It provides a guaranteed quantum predetermined fix of his release for 2 at the same time.